Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining along for our Dream Week virtual poetry reading. My name is Stephanie Obar Garcia, and I am the Public Programs, Diversity, and Inclusion Manager at the San Antonio Museum of Art. The San Antonio DreamWeek Summit is comprised of hundreds of events presented by local organizations and individuals with the collective purpose to foster the free exchange of ideas on universal issues affecting the human race. The aim is to invite all to participate in an open and welcoming arena where real world issues are engaged in a well-balanced manner with the understanding that the truest voices will always prevail. DreamWeek's mission is to celebrate our humanity by creating environments for civic and civil engagement to embrace ideas and dreams for the common good. This event is in honor of the following week's recognition of MLK Day. Our host this evening is Andrea Vocab Sanderson, who is San Antonio's official Poet Laureat. Lectures and artist conversations are made possible by the generous support from the Louis A. and Francis B. Wagner Lecture Fund. And with that, I will turn it over to Andrea, and I will put my the screen there. So.
Greetings, everyone. It's so good to see you all. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, San Antonio Museum of Art, for all that you do to bring awareness and to spread culture and joy and light and a whole bunch of other things. I have had the pleasure of partnering with San Antonio Museum of Art for quite some time now through this whole process of shutdown. We've been working together trying to keep community engaged and things of that nature. I'm going to go straight into my poem. My little brother's not in the Zoom tonight, but this poem is dedicated to him because it's about him. And it's based off of this wonderful painting that you see here, David Lyon. And this poem is called When the Brown Boy Wonders. When the brown boy approaches the towering, colorful canvas, he has questions in his heart. His eyes scan over the lavish greenery and periwinkle background. His gaze centers on unfamiliar eyes. First, he inquires about their color, but then he says, "Who is this man? Why is he important?" He wonders, why is he portrayed this way, stately, regal even? He inspects the picture closely, says he looks like royalty. Raises his finger to the air, so close as he can get without touching Wiley's piece. He glances to the right, reads about the artwork. He speaks the subject's name, slightly confused, then repeats as if he better understands. He sounds out the syllable of the muse. I'm not frozen. You probably think I'm frozen. No. I'm going to back up a couple lines. Raises his finger to the air, so close as he can get without touching Wiley's piece. He glances to the right, reads about the artwork. He speaks the subject's name, slightly confused, then repeats as if he better understands. He sounds out the syllables of the muse. His curiosity is cresting with answers just beyond his reach. I am hesitant to speak because I want him to wonder if he can be in a painting one day. I want his dreams to reach taller than this canvas. I hope that he realizes how closely he resembles David Lyon, the man in the painting that's hanging above, how their cheeks have the same youthful sheen, how their hues are almost identically dark. Earlier today at breakfast, he asked me, "Is the Ku Klux Klan in San Antonio? Why do white people hate us so much?" His small, inquisitive voice sank into his porcelain-colored plate. These questions eat my skin right off the bone. My voice retreats into my throat to find the most painful truth. None of this can be summed up neatly or be answered quietly over his scrambled eggs. I reach for the pepper and shake black specks onto poached egg whites before I split to the yolk. If I had my thoughts together at the time, I would have said, God mixed his best paint in the oils and clay of your skin, Joshua. You are fine Black art, and everyone wants to touch and own a masterpiece. You are high art, and the world is full of envy instead of admiration. Dream yourself bigger and grander than all the museums and all of the artifacts, because you are the world's greatest treasure. That's that piece. So thank you for bearing with me. What had happened was I was scrolling and then my screen went all the way to the beginning of my speech. And I was not doing my speech, I was doing my poem. But that's life, you know, moments like that happen. So thank you for bearing with me. So I was asked by the museum, and thank you so much again for this opportunity and for the ability to be able to curate with these wonderful poets that we have this evening and storytellers. I was asked to prepare a speech to give to you all, and I look forward to speaking these words over the next few minutes. So settle in, and I don't know, I'm gonna break for this just a second to ask Stephanie if she has anything that she wants to say before I go into my speech, and if not, then I will just proceed. But I'm done with the poem. I mean, I'm done with the ekphrastic. So yeah, let me speak to that for just a second. So it's called ekphrastic poetry when you are inspired by a painting or a work of art. If you were to gaze at something and you were to speak to that piece and talk about whatever life through your gaze, upon looking at that piece, it would be referred to as ekphrastic poetry. So I'm done with that for now, and I will transition into my speech if there's nothing that I need to avail myself to. Scrolling things. Okay. There is nothing civilized about hatred. I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. MLK. So in times where civility is being trodden down by an insurrection of hatred disguised as patriotism or conservatism, we must remember to dispel the darkness. But darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hatred cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. MLK. Love can manifest itself in vivid expressions such as photography, statues, carvings, and paintings. Love can manifest in heroic acts like in 1964, the Summer of Freedom, where 1,000 men and women from various walks of life converged on Mississippi to establish schools, change the delegation, and integrate the ideals of suffrage into the system for Black folk who just wanted to exercise their 15th Amendment right to vote. There are always obstacles against treating people of color civilly, and oftentimes those obstacles came in the form of law. The Black codes of the 1860s became the stiff-necked Jim Crow of the 1870s into the early 1900s. And as Frederick Douglass once said, slavery is not abolished until the Black man has the ballot. So for every judge and state legislature that swung down the polished wooden gavel on freedom and created laws to deny justice to those only seeking civilized answer to their court cases, or for every starched law enforcement agent that acted as a bully, barricading voting booths from Black voters, for every Klansman cowardly hiding underneath pristinely white sheets, waiting to bludgeon innocent Black people with clubs and rifle barrels. There comes a time of reckoning and recompense, a time when art could and would reflect the truth of injustice, put a mirror to the face of the American public, rallying an undeniable cry to look at its true image for what it is, the good, the bad, and the vilest ugly. There came such a time in the 1930s and 40s when Black art began to emerge from the North like the Harlem Renaissance era. and trickled into the South. Images of violence were depicted and shared to the shock and awe of oblivious Americans that began to take a candid look in that American mirror. Because Black people were not the savages or the monsters they had been previously referred to as. So they began to organize protests, and those protests were nonviolent, and they were protesting for valid reasons. Nonviolence is absolute commitment to the way of love. Love is not emotional bash. It is not empty sentimentalism. It is the active outpouring of one's whole being into the being of another. And that's a quote from MLK as well. In the midst of these protests, sit-ins, marches, hunger strikes, and rallies, more and more voices came to a crescendo and poetic expressions. People like Margaret Walker, June Jordan, Nikki Giovanni. These women spoke out about resistance, gave us chants and empowering quotes that became radical mantras. These griots told and retold the stories of formerly enslaved people that were coming up from under subjugation and rising like ocean tides. Poets who showed us we are not makers of history, we are made by history, MLK. They dared us to actualize through their stanzas about identity and pride. They penned couplets of courage and ballads that urged us to love and live for equality. Every glorious verse they spoke gave us winged words to take flight and catch the currents of change. Freedom fighters were set forth on a courageous journey and told, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. MLK. During that time, verbal alchemists like Maya Angelou and the last poets or the author of Riots, Gwendolyn Brooks, heightened our awareness and gave us the fortitude to just keep on rising, no matter. And no one made it any easier for Black folks to make a stand or take a stand, but we were inspired to do so. Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. MLK. In spite of how hard it got, with the help of poets and our assassinated leaders like MLK Jr., Jimmy Lee Jackson, Medgar Evers, and Malcolm X, we learned to get back up. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. MLK. We fortified our resolve and mobilized our communities with love and forgiveness as the pulse in our movement. We made developments, and we must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we would discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies. Another quote from MLK. No matter how many enemies that forged weapons against us, we kept working, and that ethic is replicated even today with the works of present-day poets and activists who were demonized for just daring to say that Black lives matter. We were scoffed for our hashtags and told that we would not make a difference. We were trolled by naysayers that belittled the cause that we created, but we kept on creating. We kept on coloring outside the racial lines, yet defining our shapes and taking our place as we erase erasure, manuscript our narratives, investing in ourselves. We are fully understanding which theories are critical to our curriculum. We are articulating the atrocities and celebrating the compassion that has demarcated the last few centuries. I don't know how long I've been muted. Stephanie, can you tell me if I've been muted for a while?
No, you have not. Sorry, it was a technical issue. Dee, if you could turn off your video, that would be good. And Andrea, if you could turn yours back on.
It says I'm unable to start video because the host has stopped it. All right, now I can start it. All right, I'm gonna back up a few sentences because I have no idea what the last thing y'all heard was. And I'm almost through powering through this part now, then I'm gonna wing some stuff because I want to talk just a little bit outside of this speech. We keep on coloring outside the racial lines, yet defining our shapes and taking our place as we erase erasure, manuscript our narratives, investing in ourselves. We are fully understanding which theories are critical to our curriculum. We are articulating the atrocities and celebrating the compassion that has demarcated the last few centuries. Poets and artists have taken agency over our own bodies and our stories. We have done the work of equipping ourselves with the resources and alliances to grow further and further beyond these bounds of inequity, qualified because we say so. We know the road won't be easy. And here's another quote from MLK. We got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. Upon our arrival to that brilliant place of promise, we will appear radiantly, for jubilant and exuberant is the melanin of our skin. From despair, we have arisen. And that's a quote from me, Andrea Sanderson. So in looking at that and thinking about those things, the poets of this community and artists of this community, you are tasked with rising to the occasion to speak to the injustices that you see, because any injustice that you see is a threat to justice everywhere. And there's the little things we can do and the big things. Something like volunteering to come out and paint a mural in the middle of the night and unveiling it in the morning so that the city can see that we are beautiful and we've arisen from despair. Something like volunteer work or giving to others or being mindful, all in those spaces, writing your truths, all of that can be done. And you can do it from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to leave home in many cases to make a difference. You can give from home. You can Zoom, you can get online and go live from home. You can put together productions with your own iPhone cameras or cellular devices. I'm on Android, shout out to Android lovers. Anyways, I'm just saying there's many things that you can do to help affect and make change. And you have people like myself who are dedicated to helping artists and providing platforms with them so that they can overcome the challenges of the society in which we're right now in, and, battling this whole idea of variant after variant surge and uptick. We can be safe and we can still be activists in our community. And so thank you for, listening to that speech. And yeah, thanks, Stephanie, for having me. So we're going to transition to the poets, and rather than have stuff up in front of my screen, I'm going to go to my cell phone and read their bios from my cell phone, because that'll be easier and I won't be freaking out like about the sensitivity of my screen and touching it. So every poet that's been selected to perform for Unite, they are personal friends of mine. So I'm going to read their bios, but hopefully I won't get into a space where I just go off about how much I love them. Sanseria Murray is an author, poet, playwright, director, Shakespeare enthusiast, and educator with over 20 years of teaching experience. In addition to school, you can catch Sanseria providing bedside creative support to patients in hospitals as a writer in residence for Hearts Need Art. As an entrepreneur, Sanseria has a theater coaching company, which includes a mentorship training program for youth. Most recently, Sanseria published her first book, Morning Star Rising, a book of poetry, which I had the pleasure of writing a blurb for her. So please welcome Sanseria Murray.
Thank you. Thank you to San Antonio Museum of Art. Thank you to Vocab. I appreciate this opportunity. Audacity. Audacity is defined as boldness or daring, especially with confident or arrogant disregard for personal safety, conventional thoughts, or other restrictions. Look at the face, his face. Look closely, the eyes, the audacity. Now look at my face, our faces. Know that despite the look in their eyes, we will not just rise, but thrive in the way they thought they'd bury us, not realizing we were seeds and that we'd thrive in darkness, taking refuge and gathering strength to push up through the soil of adversity and bloom. The audacity. Look at my two aunts and uncle who were the first and only 3 Black students to integrate their high school. Imagine the nerve of these 3 Black students. Look at how they shine with steel resolve to learn. Look at all of the firsts of Black folks in the not so distant past. First to own their own businesses, first to make medical discoveries, the first to do what hadn't been done or even imagined before. The audacity. Look at the courage. Look at their unwavering strength and resilience to show up to school every day. Look at how they compliantly rode in the back of the school bus with confident disregard for their personal safety when kids brandish their words as weapons of hate. Look at the sting of their bigotry, the threats based in their own anti-Black loathing, seething from their own fragility, the audacity to flourish, to grow in depth of strength and rooted in wisdom and tradition of a land we once called home. I celebrate the fierce boldness and courage of my ancestors who not only got up after being spit on, hosed down, beat down, but they flourished to a level of success that still somehow holds threat to those who would see us as other. To march, to organize and build our communities, to tell our stories, to vote, to fight against voter suppression and risk life and limb to participate as citizens and exercise their right to have their voices be heard. To marry, they dared to love, to have babies and families who would carry their hope to future generations, to just be, to exist and to live free. The audacity to meet this smug face on your way to university and walk with your head held high in the face of direct opposition and oppression with quiet, confident defiance. Look now at how, in the face of adversity, Blackness showed up with determination and tenacity to preserve, to sit in, to boycott, to sing the blues, to create art, to be able to make something out of scraps, homemade traditions of pig feet and chitlins, to remember who we are, to invent, to innovate, to design melodies and reshape chords, to make love, to live and move and have our being with the full honor and dignity bestowed on us by the Creator. Blackness rises to audacity.
Thank you, Sanseria. That was amazing. I love that piece. So I'm gonna
unmute. Here I am, unmuted, starting my video. Hello.
All right, I'm back. So I had to switch to my phone because my laptop is draining really, really fast. And I'm going to go into my introduction of the next artist that's reading tonight. Mandy Lynn is a poet, teaching artist, bringing theater arts to rowdy middle schoolers across San Antonio, Texas. She is co-founder of Raise the Whisper, a poetry and arts group focused on healing the effects of family rape. Mandy Lynn is a member of the Pearl Slam poetry team, representing San Antonio in national competitions from 2018 to present day. Her recent work has been featured in La Prensa, Texas, and TPR's Worth Repeating. Please welcome Mandy Lynn.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you all for the opportunity. Here we go. 2.5 milligrams. 2.5 milligrams was her starting dose. How quickly it became her chronic routine. Over long, lazy summers, I watched my grandmother schedule pill-taking time by the theme song for The Price is Right. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. She danced to her daily tune, shuffling in her fuzzy slippers and bathrobe over to the end table, where she snapped those little 5 milligram tabs in half and washed them down with cold toast slathered in butter and a perfectly sweet cream cup of hot English tea. As the hand trembling got worse, she started jamming those same little pills into a pill cutter until she became a 5 milligram patient, because a double dose is what those physicians supposed she needed to make her well again. Gave her another prescription and another set of instructions she could not decipher, another medication she could not afford when the convulsions overtook her hands. But still, the tremors got louder until her head shook in false affirmation. To the doctors whom she thought held all the answers, to her grown children with their hand-me-down anecdotes, she literally could not say no. And the pains got greater, and the sickness shook the youthful skin from her silky face, and her regimen grew by pills to treat the side effects of the pills, to treat the side effects of the pills, to treat what ailed her. And the pills got bigger, and the pills got denser, and the pills became her livelihood, became her life, and we knew that she would die without them. But the bills also got bigger, and the bills got denser, and the bills hurt her livelihood. They became the terror in her lonesome weekday thoughts. And we knew the anxiety could kill her quicker than any illness. But if the price was right, there was a pill for that too. She slowly lost her autonomy and became an indigent patient, lost and dependent on a national healthcare system that did not have her best interest. A healthcare system with the sworn oath to do the greatest good for the most people, upside down in a wealthy country blessed by healing bedside caregivers, and plagued just the same by the drive for profit. Wealth care, too big to fail, has repeatedly failed the patients it serves, the patients who sell their life savings for the medication to live. And this country, where the average price of life-sustaining prescription medication is 4 times higher than 11 other first world countries combined. The profit made by pharmaceutical companies helps themselves and hurts our bottom lines and our lives. On a hot summer day, just after my grandmother popped that 2.5 milligram tablet in her mouth, washed down with pride and a good prognosis, she told me that she wanted me to grow up and become a doctor so that I could change the world, cracking open the healthcare system the same way that she cracked those 5 milligram pills every morning at 9 a.m. I wanted to honor my grandmother's dream for me to change the world. So instead, I became a poet, dreaming of a world where access to healthcare is not a matter of selling possessions you have worked your entire life to gather, but a God-gifted right to an affordable life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. I love me some Mandy Lynn. It's a pleasure to hear that. And it's not always easy to speak those truths, but it's true. The reform that needs to happen for our healthcare system to protect us, we've realized it more than ever in the past 2 years. So it takes a powerful voice to stand up and speak to that. Our next presenter, poet, friend. They're always posting, skate no more. Dee Mahone, San Antonio local. Dee Mahone is a licensed massage therapist and doula who uses poetry and language to explore relationships, sentiment, and emotion. Her evocative and illustrative work transports and immerses the listener, and that is absolutely true. Please welcome Dee Mahone.
Hi, I'm honored to be here. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, Dee, we can hear you. I think your camera just got
camera
moved.
is facing the wrong direction. There we go. Okay. So the art piece that I selected is the one that's on the left-hand side. It's Ghosts of the Old Mississippi. And this piece really struck home with me because I was thinking about a joke that kind of talks about the difference between language. It's what's your favorite number? Lim. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, lim. And that number is a number that also comes with a kind of language that's spoken by a certain type of people from the old Mississippi. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Numerologically, 11 is a spiritual number. Mississippi Delta, soft silk languishing into long land chokehold, carotid crook held steady, resistance throttled by Gentile hands, snakishly slugging like cottonmouth's venom into mineral-rich deposits, painting them muddy, rebranding the water that wants to flow free and the land that wants to control it. Give me liberty or give me death. Picnicking, sangre tasting, savoring wines forbidden, snacking on coerced, stolen, and ill-gotten labors juxtaposes that. Red lines conjure phantom toll booths, black blood long dried under fresh crevasses, reminders, you will be the life-giving waters. Slapping water wheels will be built and cavorted on while called wild, untamable, dismal. Bend, adapt, remember. Skin of earth, body of air, soul of water, soul of fire. Send soul songs upriver like steam-powered prayers and quilled cosmos inside of a thimble. May your silence be like the dismal swamp, that you may appear to languish and stagnate like a lethargian to avoid a wary eye, while your roots heal, while your branches and your banks mend, turning trauma through time into mineral-rich loam. Learning how to remember the paths a river must take to learn true freedom, in forever finding new routes to flow. Birthing life springs like bubbling bogs, burping up and watercolor washing industrialized banks, under tongue steam building and rising to the levees where northern lights dance in the sky, bending, dipping, and winding, calling for you to wade in. Molasses brown and deep, rich and sweet, like the people who dare dip rudder roughened hands below opaque surface, fingers noodling, throat humming, grateful for fingers to send into hungry bullhead catfish mouths, into river winding waterways, into tears so silent they evaporate off sun-kissed cheeks like prayers. They can't hold rivers or steam or rain for long. Throat song hums, clay pot ripples find center, 2,000-mile gazes wish and wash again and again, slow like molasses, slow enough to dredge old bones, stones, fossils, and souls up from the earth in a silence scream. 11 letters cascade down in an old tongue, Mississippi, a reminder, a prayer evaporated, sent to spirits whose whose bare feet squelched 11 toes down through the water, eyes looking straight, a head out of water to meet. Thank you.
You better be great. I love your imagery. Your imagery is just the everything to me, the everything. Oh, thank you so much for that. So I'll be like, I'm not going to speak proper English. I don't really care. I'm going to say it just like this. I'll be picking poets for selfish reasons because I just want to hear them. And you're welcome. Anybody out there that's thinking that poem just blessed me, you're welcome. The dopeness that lives in the city, I tell y'all, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else because I love this city's poets. Next up, this is not in the bio, but I'm going to take a minute to talk about it. This next artist is an entrepreneur as well as an artist. And there's artistry to the way he does his entrepreneurship even. But he owns a business called Tasty AF, and the AF stands for Aguas Frescas. And he's been featured on numerous televisions and publications with this business. And what you need to know is then you need to go over to Tasty AF or hit him up for the delivery because he does deliver his aguas frescas and you can get your whole life. And they come in these awesome pouches. So you could just carry your pouch around and get your sip on. You could be doing that right now if you had known, but now you know, and knowing is half the battle. So you can get your Tasty AF Aguas Fresca pouch. That's been a PSA from your local Poet Laureate. All right, on to the bio reading. Johnny Major Rivers III, or Space Dragon, is an award-winning poet, published author, photographer, and artist born and raised in the Sun City of El Paso, Texas. A McMurray University alum, Space Dragon represented El Paso as a former International World Poetry Slam competitor and Southwest Shootout finalist. Pew, pew. He was recognized by the University of Texas at El Paso as a distinguished queer community leader. Johnny has made San Antonio his new home, where he is a competitive slam poet and periodically hosts the Blah, Blah, Blah open mic series. Space Dragon has been performing his poetry for 11 years and is a proud queer Latinx father who utilizes his work, his writing, and art as a form of activism. Please welcome Johnny Major Rivers III, AKA Space Dragon.
Thank you so much, Vocab, and I appreciate everyone here for having me. This piece of art spoke to me for so many reasons, but I'll just get into the poem. Our Lady of Guadalupe, place made, Spain, general region, Europe, medium, oil on copper, place made, Spain. Hers is a robust figure with beautiful folds in her belly, her bosom, a proud display of motherhood. Her true form adorns severed hearts and hands around her neck, with serpents encompassing and clothing her. From her womb came the sun and the moon, and 400 stars she called her sons. Before the pedestal, the one that she never needed, before the garments that were more egregious than the humility that she was carved with, La Madre de Todo, and creator of all, Indígena. Here before the Spanish needed the Nahuatl from her name, Tuancin, Coatlicue, serpent skirt. They feared her form, They continue to fear ours, as we are but a reflection of the hands that formed us from the earth. Her features, an affront to conquest, her skin too fertile, her presence too powerful to quelch. She is more than an indoctrinated tool, more than an allegoric character remastered like a new coat of paint on a galaxy. Her presence predates the theology that attempted to desecrate her very face. Evangelism plus colonization, the formula for erasure. How many times have they taken the back of a pencil to the stories of our ancestors and instead scribbled in their chosen names and faces, retelling stories without the context or the content? They stole her, assimilated her spirit in so that we would follow suit, refined, confined, painted white and placed in a glass box for display, gave her a new name, a new story, built a church over her temple, and called her their own. Today I reclaim her, rescue her from the museum wall and set her free. Collect her effigies and plant them back in the soil from which they came. She is my mother, brown-skinned matriarch, and she was not made in Spain. Hers was a story that survived conquest. Her color bleeding through the mounds of fabric like an iron maiden, caging the mother whose body was cherished for centuries before the West bonded the image with fabric in the name of piety. She belongs to no one, but especially not tethered to a copper canvas, not confined. She will not be one more Mexicana locked in a cage. And with this emancipation, may my prayers reach her ear. May my message play in your subconscious every time you see her colonized depiction. May these words unsheath your view. May you witness her escape, and in doing so, find the courage to break free from the mechanisms forged to subjugate. Because today, I reclaim you too, and free you from the obligations we were conditioned to believe would grant us salvation, when all they did was make us that much easier to conquer. Cacuique, Sacred Mother, General Region, Mesoamerica, Place Made, the Aztec Empire, Medium, the Cosmos. Thank you all very much.
That was dope. Now I'm like, now I want to have a personal conversation with you about how you ended where you started and how you brought it full circle. I love it. I love it. Anyways, so that's not the time for this, but I wanted to be. Thank you, Johnny, for that very dope poem. And now we're going to hear from someone who they put this in their bio, but I feel the need to talk about it just a little bit more. So the Carver Community Cultural Center, they have something called the Intimate Series, which I was blessed to be a part of with my theater production. But this woman, this next artist, is about to have their own performance theater piece a part of that series, and that happens on 4/22/22. We're going to talk about the significance of these doubles in a little bit, not right now, but I need y'all to purchase a ticket to the show. After you see this poet read, you're going to understand why I'm saying what I'm saying, but I need y'all to get a ticket for the Intimate Series to see this next performer. Here we go. Jess Mahogany Mitchell is an actress, poet, and mental health clinician who merges her worlds to provide healing edutainment. You can catch her combining these elements in a theatrical fashion on 4/22/22 as a part of the Little Carver's Intimate Series. Again, you don't want to miss it. Please welcome to the Zoom room, Jess Mahogany.
Thank you so much, Vocab. Thanks to all the other poets. I am Jess Mahogany, and yes, do catch me on 4/22/22 if you like what you hear. I'm gonna get into this piece. I chose this photograph by Danny Lyon, and I did a little bit of research. As you see, these women, along with about 28 more, were arrested for demonstrating in Americus, Georgia, a peaceful protest where they were simply going to try to buy movie tickets at a segregated theater. So that was their crime. They were then taken away, stolen from their families. No one knew that they were arrested. And they were taken about anywhere between 25 and 30 miles away from their home, all the way to Leesburg, and locked up in a place where they had no beds, no pillows, no nothing, no sanitary napkins, barely any toilet paper, nothing. And they were all under the age of 17, some as young as 12. So this piece is called Sleep. Sleep. I wonder how they did it. Closed eyes to age and circumstance, and what were their dreams about? When Martin was marching to speak his dream of freedom for all, justice for all, liberty for all, had they been vision boarding your simultaneous attempt at demise, manifesting the trauma that would come post this tragedy? And what a tragedy it was. Surely more drama than the movie you were going to see. I mean, how much more peaceful can a protest be other than a bended knee? A few kids wishing to integrate theater seats bought first row tickets to the irony. While you braved efforts to integrate humanity, they showed up as inhumane, the epitome. And when I look at you, it's so very unclear to me how they could sleep, how you could sleep, how you were expected to sleep, how they didn't even care how you slept when they rounded up children, squared you away in concrete confines with cylindrical bars narrow enough to prevent escape, but just wide enough for the snakes, both reptile and mankind, segregated you further from peace of mind, not a single bed for a single head, not a blanket, pillow, or time to make a call, plead your case, be seen as anything but your race, literally anything would have been given more grace. And I know there must have been plenty of nights when you couldn't go to sleep. Howled at the moon, hoping your voice's waves would reach the length of home, of family, of broadcasting the inhumanity of conditions, lack of permissions, the thickness of the partition between those forced to live like animals and the ones that actually behaved as such. I'll come to learn they called you strong, admiring your ability to endure torture, less the tears, as if your strength wasn't enough on exhibit when you stood in line to share space with those who didn't even try to mask their despise. And oh my, what light skin they had, all the better to degrade you with. And oh, what dark skin you had, the kind no one was hurrying to save you with. So wasn't you being there in the first place warrior enough of an act? Would the cracking of a child and adult shattering conditions change that fact? They'll credit you your honor all because you somehow slept, because few tears failed. But loss of choice was the reason you found sleep, and loss of hope was the reason you didn't weep. These don't equate to hero, does not an admirable person make. Let's anchor this with its proper weight. You are victim, you are traumatized, you are forever a bearer of witness to history's atrocities, and your strength isn't for managing to survive in conditions meant to kill you, when those who didn't make it would have been just as strong. It comes from the stand you took that put you on the ground, looking up, whether through shades or behind closed lids, at the lens capturing the reason for your release. It came the moment you knew that there was no space they could occupy for which you weren't worthy to enter. It was in your unity, your divinity. Your actions were your bravery. Your strength was in not being afraid to show up in the first place, and in believing your love for others could change the face of hatred, of bigotry, could start to rewrite the history of those who segregated you from everything for 45 days. Home, family, even a worry-free sleep. So I truly bid you rest in peace, even those of you still alive, because it's something I still wonder how they did. And can you believe we're still trying to get them to wake up? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So everyone, y'all show some love, maybe even in the chat or whatever, show some love to these poets who have come and shared their ekphrastic poetry with you all. That was so powerful, so amazing, and also heartbreaking at the same time. That concludes the list of poets that are performing tonight. And at this time, I don't know if we're going to open up the floor to Q&A at all, but definitely want to turn the floor back over to Stephanie to speak to us. And, you know, it is
again, my challenge to you all, ask you all to consider ways that you can activate in your own space, in your own community, which is our community, San Antonio. There is someone here that you probably know that is dealing with some form of injustice, and they need an advocate. And it doesn't take much but compassion to advocate for others. If you have a pen, you have a voice. If you have a writing apparatus, you have a voice. Last summer, I partnered with San Antonio Museum of Art, and we did the Action Sama bags, where we asked community to come and get these postcards and design them and write letters of affirmation, letters about the change they want to see, or encouraging words and encouragement to community. And people, they came out and they got those bags and they participated. And I think it's a powerful thing. It's something as small as writing a letter. It can make a big difference, or making a phone call to your Congress people, your senators, your representatives, things of that nature. All of these things come together and they create a roar, and your voice can roar if you believe and actualize. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Yes, and thank you so much, Andrea, and all of our amazing poets and the spoken word that we heard here tonight. Thank you all so much to the poets and everybody that joined us for participating in this evening's DreamWeek virtual poetry reading. Please check out our website for all of our upcoming programming that we have, lectures and artist talks and all that. But thank you so much to everybody, and have a great evening. Thank you.